threats and people in those locations also where American troops are co-located. So that's a consideration of ours. We've been in close consultation with them, and we appreciate the support that we have gotten.
Thanks for the question on sort of the global picture. And as you know, that's one of my jobs, is to look globally at the entire range of challenges. We are always carefully considering our force posture around the world.
Now we have guests joining us for this discussion on this story. Yossi Cooper-Wasser, he's Israeli intelligence and security expert. Yossi, what can you tell us about the current situation and reaction of Israeli people and government regarding U.S.'s statement, and the fresh statement saying that U.S. attacked or joined the attack not for regime change in Iran, while Iranian, last week we saw that Netanyahu issued a statement asking Iranian people for uprising, and it seemed like they were pushing for an uprising. However, now we know that from U.S. Defense Ministry that this attack was not for uprising. What do you make of this situation?
Well, first of all, people in Israel are very satisfied and happy with what happened this night, because it's a severe blow to the Iranian ambition to have the capability to produce nuclear weapons and to actually produce them. And with the Fordow attack, and with Natanz attack, and with Isfahan attack, the capability of the Iranians to have a nuclear project has become much less possible. And that's a very important step forward for the security and stability of Israel, of the Middle East entirely, and of the world, I would say. So we are very happy with that. Now, regarding regime change, we never put regime change as a goal of our operation, and we have no disagreement with the Americans on that. We all would like to see a regime change in Iran, because we understand that the problems stem primarily from the kind of regime they have, that is determined to spread this fanaticism and radical ideology all over the world. But we understand that this is up to the Iranian people to bring about such a change. We can weaken the regime by the attacks we carry out, by depriving it from its proxies, as we did during the last year and a half, by weakening its capability to produce nuclear weapons. That is the crown jewel of their activities. Instead of caring for their people, they put all their money, in spite of the economic difficulties, in this nuclear project. But on top of that, it's up to the Iranian people to rise up and do what they need to do if they want to do it, if they are courageous enough to do it, in order to topple the regime. We understand how difficult it is and how dangerous it is, so we don't judge them, just try to see if they are going to do that or not. If not, we can prevent Iran from becoming a problem to the Middle East by the steps we take.
And Yossi, building on that from an intelligence standpoint, how coordinated was this strike between U.S. and Israel, according to you?
Well, you know, the Americans were hesitating whether to carry out this attack or not. They preferred, they tried the diplomatic way, and they conducted negotiations with the Iranians for 60 days. As they said right from the beginning, that they extend the offer to the Iranians that remains valid until for 60 days. On the 61st day, we took action because it was clear that the Iranians refused to move and show any flexibility on the diplomatic way, and that's when we moved. And even after that, the Americans still preferred the diplomatic way and said, okay, now that the Israelis took action, maybe this is going to convince the Iranians to be more forthcoming and more flexible. And there was an initiative to try to convince the Iranians to show flexibility in the diplomatic negotiations they conducted with the European foreign ministers. But it turned out that even then, even after the Israeli attack, the Iranians remained very stubborn, insisted on having the capability to enrich uranium on their soil, and refusing to do what the Americans offered them. And that's where the Americans decided that they should, there's no other way but to carry out an attack in order to make sure that the efforts of Israel to destroy the Iranian nuclear project are going to be successful. And that part, the military part, was of course well coordinated because we are operating over Iran with our Air Force. So it was extremely important to make sure that there's deconfliction and there was support in understanding the intelligence picture. And in a way, we paved the road for the Americans to carry out this operation. They would have done it anyhow, but we helped them know that they are safe on their flight because we took care of the Iranian air defenses well in advance. So the Americans could have carried their attack without worrying about the Iranian air defenses. And they could have done it anyhow, even without us, because they used the stealth bomber for that purpose.
And Yossi, from what we know of the American bases in Middle East, as American bases are now in a dangerous situation, or not situation, but a dangerous place given the location of their bases. Do you think that they are acting as a buffer for Israel, or is it more dangerous as they can be attacked, or Iran can carry attack on those bases, according to you?
First of all, they're not a buffer because the Iranians keep launching missiles in our direction, regardless of what they're going to do or not do vis-a-vis the American bases in the region. And yes, the American bases might be a target for Iranian missile attack. And there are all kinds of other things that the Iranians can do, both on the military level and on the political level, diplomatic level. They threaten to do all kinds of things regarding their commitment to the NPT. This is ridiculous because even though they were committed to the NPT, they breached the NPT all the time, lying to the world about the real intention of their military nuclear program. But they consider all kinds of steps, and including hitting the American bases. At least the American bases, the American soldiers in the Middle East know that they are in dangerous situation, and they definitely took the necessary steps in order to be better prepared to absorb such an attack.
And Yossi, looking back at the recent strikes on 3 locations, nuclear sites in Iran, do you think that these attacks on those sites has set back Iran's nuclear capability, or did it increase the chances of counterattack towards Israel?
Well, they definitely increased the chances of counterattack against Israel. We are under attack for 8.5 days already. But I think that they did at the same time to set the Iranian nuclear project back considerably. It's hard to say how much exactly, but considerably for sure. And it's first of all, a lot of damage has been done to the facilities that are critical for this project. Both the enrichment facilities and the conversion facilities were severely hit, and we hit also the scientists that lead this project, and we hit some of the locations that are part of the weaponization project. So a lot of damage was done, and we hit also the centrifuge production facilities. A lot of damage was done to the Iranian nuclear program. But it's beyond just the damage done. We crossed the Rubicon together with them, with the Americans. Now we crossed the Rubicon that says that if the Iranians insist on moving forward towards having a nuclear capability, there's going to be a military attack to prevent that. And we did it a couple of days ago, and the Americans did it last night. And this is a message that the Iranians cannot ignore, because if they're going to try again to build a nuclear project, there's going to be a military action well before we are not going to wait for the last minute. This time we waited 20 years until it was really the last minute that we took action. But in the future, it's us and the Americans are not going to wait for the Iranians to move all this way up.
And Yossi, looking back at what Araghchi, Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi said in his talks in Turkey, that Iran never left the negotiation table. And what is your take on that?
Well, they never left the negotiation table, but they said what they said at the negotiation table was not leading anywhere. They refused to give up enrichment on Iranian soil. They refused to give up a lot of other elements. There are 23 issues that were discussed, and all of them they presented positions that are unacceptable. And they insisted on having the capability to produce nuclear weapons. That's what they wanted. And this is unacceptable. And they stayed at the table, but they said things that are unacceptable. That's the problem. It's the positions that's the problem, not the presence or lack of presence. And the United States gave the Iranians ample time to change its position, and it gave it all the warnings necessary to know that if they refuse to change their position, there will be consequences, severe consequences. The Americans didn't hide that from the Iranians and not from the entire world. It was said repeatedly by the Americans, and the Iranians nevertheless preferred to ignore the warnings.
And Yossi, now moving to a bigger picture, how do you respond to Turkey's statement on mediating efforts, and is Turkey positioning itself as a balancing power or future mediator in this crisis? And can Israel and US as well as Iran trust Turkey as a mediator, and looking at its membership to NATO and strategic ties to both West and the Middle East?
Look, we don't have a lot of trust in Turkey these days because the president of Turkey is speaking about Israel in a way that is totally unacceptable. We cannot trust Erdogan to be a mediator. That said, there's no need for mediation. The European Union, the 3 European foreign ministers of the United Kingdom, France and Germany are serving as mediators. We don't need another mediator. It's just what needs to happen is to have the Iranians accept the deal that was presented to them by the Americans. That does not happen. That is the problem, not the lack of mediation. There were even direct talks between the Americans and the Iranians. They don't need a mediator at all. There was a mediator. The Omani foreign minister was going back and forth, but we don't need a mediator. We need an Iranian decision. That's what's needed. An Iranian decision to give up the nuclear project. That's what's needed.
Now, looking at France Macron has also issued a statement saying that I don't recall what he said, but what do you think France's position is like about Europe's strategic anxiety over the expanding situation of Iran and Israel?
I think that the French and some of the Europeans are unhappy with what we did because they believe that priority should be given to the diplomatic way, and any conditions the diplomatic way should not be abandoned. And we are not in a disagreement on that. Priority was given to the diplomatic way, but the French refused to accept is that the diplomatic way failed. That's the sad news. The diplomatic option failed, and that's why we had to go to the military option. If the diplomatic option would have succeeded, we would be very happy to see this entire problem solved through diplomatic means. It would have been much better, even from an Israeli point of view, even though we don't trust the Iranians. And that's why we said that the diplomatic solution should be based on real verification and the ability of the monitoring body to conduct verification anytime, anywhere, without any conditions. But the Iranians refused to that, refused everything. They just said, we are not really ready to move on any issue, especially not on enrichment. And that was the reason that the negotiations failed. I think that the French had an opportunity to witness that firsthand when their Minister of Foreign Affairs conducted negotiations with the Iranians this last, I think it was Friday, and to no avail. There was no progress. And the Iranians stick to their stubborn position, and that's it. And I must say that the German chancellor adopted a different opinion. He said, well, what's happening is that Israel is doing the dirty job that we don't do. And we should thank Israel for doing that, because somebody has to deal with the Iranian nuclear project. Somebody has to make sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear project. And that is designed to produce nuclear weapons. And since we are not going to do it, and nobody else is going to do it, it's good that the Israelis do it. Somebody has to do it.
And now we are also joined by Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov. He's a president of IDC Russia and director at WHD International Board, joining us live from Russia. Dr. Sergei, do you believe the U.S. strikes on these 3 nuclear sites have effectively set back Iran's nuclear program, or will they accelerate retaliation according to you?
First of all, I want to tell that we are right now in the middle of the war of civilizations. And we can see that the Middle East always was a very complicated region. Just 2 days back, I saw a very funny poster where 2 images, national leader of India and Xi Jinping, leader of China. And in the poster, they suggest, Chinese leader suggests and advise to all Chinese leave Israel. And Sri Narendra Modi suggests to all Indian leave Iran. We can see that, of course, this attack of America to Iran also involved China, because China already replied they're not happy with this action, because Iran supply a lot of oil to Iran and to China, and China depends of the economy depends of Iranian oil. Also, in the same time, we can see that right now that is a question of unity of the nation, unity of Iranian nation and unity of Israeli nation as well. Because last many years, maybe some tens years, Iran was under the sanctions of Western countries, and they was survived during this history, and they become smartest nation in the world. And we can see that they was ready for such kind of activity for this war, and is only one first step. And of course, they have their own strategy, how not only to be survived, but also how they can they can bring their nation to victory. For my opinion, Donald Trump, because he's peacemaker basically, he did something, some formality. This attack is not so strong, I can see. It's just a formality. And after that, he can start to negotiate with peace like he did between Pakistan and India. And he can repeat his success, his huge success to be a peacemaker. But still, big challenger exists, because regarding Israel, they don't want to stop. Israel doesn't want to stop this war. They want completely change the regime in Iran. That is a big challenger, but at the same time, we can see that this attack gave to us opposite results. Iranian nation right now in the unity, and they united themselves. And of course, this conflict, we can expect some deep escalation.
And I've already got opinion of Yossi for this question, but Dr. Sergey, how do you respond to Turkey's statement that the strike could escalate into global war? And is Turkey positioning itself as a balancing power here or a future mediator in this crisis? And would you either trust it or would either side trust it, given its NATO membership as well as strategic ties to both the West as well as the Middle East?
Yes, I completely agree that is a big challenger to all of us, to humanity, that we can see that we cannot dialogue of civilization. We're in the middle of the war. And first of all, we can see that right now, this Iranian and Israel conflict increasing the unity in Muslim countries, in Muslim world, because it touched to their face, to the most influence our spiritual identity, because our spiritual identity is the main reason and main motivation of our action. Of course, it's a very sensitive question, and Turkey, they just want not support Iran, they want to support Islamic position of Islamic world. It's a solidarity to Iran. And of course, it's very complicated. And I believe that Donald Trump, he has some peacemaking potential. And after this action, we can start with some negotiation. But everything depends on the role and position of Israel as well. What will be their step and what it will be their reply for the next upcoming soon, because everybody talking about this upcoming soon reply of Iran. What we can expect in future. It will be escalation or peacemaking dialogue. Nobody knows.
Dr. Sergey, you will stay with us. Now I move on to our guest, Yossi. Yossi, can the UN Security Council act as a meaningful entity, and now that Iran has demanded an emergency session, or will it split along predictable lines according to you? And what would de-escalation look like from an Israeli security perspective?
Well, I have limited expectations from the UN Security Council. It's full with countries that show no responsibility, so you can't expect much from them. But I think that the Americans and the Europeans can move forward and try to bring about some progress towards a solution of this conflict. And Russia can play a role as well. Russia can play a role as well if she decides so. Putin is going to meet Archie. Sorry, Putin is going to meet Archie today, and I'm sure he's in touch with Trump, with President Trump, and he might try to convince the Iranians to accept the deal presented to them by the Americans. This is the way out of this conflict. If the Iranians accept the deal, then we shall be able to establish some sort of tranquility, and this is going to be in the benefit of everybody in the region and beyond. But if the Iranians keep pushing for the moon and trying to keep the capability to produce nuclear weapons, there's not going to be a solution. There's not going to be an end to this conflict. And the only way to handle that would be through military means. We shall have to keep hitting the Iranian capabilities until they don't have any more capabilities left.
Thank you, Yossi. You will stay with us. Now we have a breaking news from Iran, where sources have told us that explosions have been heard in and around the town of Bushehr, which houses Iran's most important nuclear facility. According to the Sharq news outlet in Iran, a big explosion was heard in Iran's central Yazd province, where air defenses have now been activated. The UN's nuclear watchdog IAEA has previously warned that striking the Bushehr plant would trigger a very high release of radioactivity. Now we go back to our discussion. Yossi, what is your take on this current breaking news that regardless of the IAEA's warning, there has been strike on Bushehr nuclear city or surroundings of it?
Well, I don't believe Israel took any step against the Bushehr nuclear power plant. It's a civilian project, and it's operated by the Russians, Rosatom, and I don't think that Israel carried out anything against the power plant. We do attack, we have already attacked several military targets in the city of and the surrounding of Bushehr. There are facilities over there that produce drones that are launched towards us. There are facilities that host ballistic missiles. There are all kinds of facilities in the vicinity of Bushehr, and that could be the target of some Israeli attack. I'm, of course, not familiar with the exact details of current attacks, but that could be the case. There's no chance in the world that Israel attacked the Bushehr power plant. So IAEA can rest assured that they don't have to worry.
And now Dr. Sergey, Yossi has told us that it's less likely that Israel has hit this plant. But according to you, if confirmed, what would these explosions mean in the context of this conflict?
I think it's a big disaster and a very painful situation for all of us. We should negotiate with a peace, and first of all, it's a question of spiritual education, because this spiritual identity right now in these neighbor nations like Israel and Iran completely increasing some hateness mood and some aggressive mood to action. We should educate people that dialogue is very, very possible. And future, of course, I believe that future can be like a dialogue of all nations and civilization. And this particular situation right now, we can see involved a lot of interests of different countries. Its economy, its level of ambitions, its level of political career, its level of proxy war. But finally, if we'll start real peacemaking dialogue, we should involve some scientists. We should involve some spiritual leaders, which can take responsibility that in 21st century with nuclear weapons, we should not play so badly with countries. And definitely, I completely believe that role of Donald Trump and our national leader and their particular understanding of each other can play main role to bring peace to Middle East. I completely believe this, that we can bring peace to Middle East, and we can definitely prepare some roadmap how we will put to these countries, Iran and Israel, to the table of peacemaking dialogue. I completely believe to this, like a peacemaker.
Dr. Sergey and Sir Yossi, you will stay with us. We have a breaking news. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called for urgent de-escalation following US strikes on Iran, stressing that Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapon. Speaking after engaging with global leaders, Starmer said the threat from Iran's nuclear program remains serious, but urged diplomacy to prevail. He added that the UK is taking all necessary steps to protect its interests while working to bring all sides back to the negotiating table.
Well, we've long had concerns about the Iranian nuclear program and been very clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The US has now taken action to alleviate that threat. It is important that we now de-escalate the situation, stabilize the region, and get the parties back around the table to negotiate. And I've been speaking with international leaders this morning to that end.
Now moving back to our discussion, Yossi, many countries in the region, including U.S. allies as well as Keir Starmer, have commented asking for de-escalation. And looking back at the Biden administration, where he spoke of diplomacy first, has this strategy been abandoned now for this particular situation between Iran and Israel, according to you?
Well, it has been abandoned for a short period of time for military activity to make sure that Iran doesn't have the capability to produce nuclear weapons. That is a short while. I hope that this would lead the Iranians to change their policy. As long as they don't change their policy, as long as they call for the destruction of the state of Israel and its annihilation through all kinds of means, including the use of the deadliest weapons, then we have to keep putting pressure on them and deprive them of the capability to do that. But I hope that following the American attack, the Iranians are going to change their mind and we shall be able to move forward. That's my hope. Anyhow, I'll have to leave now because I'm scheduled to be on another program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yossi.